do want to go ahead and move on to the first part of my stream, and that is my review for Andor, episodes 1 through 3. Now, we already did a watch party for all 3 episodes. Chat, that was very smart that Lucasfilm released these back to back to back. And for those that don't know, this is set 5 years before the events of Rogue One. Follows a number of characters, including Andor, during the time of the Rebel Alliance. It's, forming in opposition against the Galactic Empire. We see kind of the early days of Andor, both as, obviously 5 years before, the events of Rogue One, before he joins the Rebellion, but also as a child, Chat, and how his various experiences inform him and make him the man that he is. And, before this show had come out, it's funny, in hindsight, I kind of view Rogue One as the best Star Wars movie of the Disney era. I have a lot of love and respect and appreciation for The Force Awakens. I just think the films that came after that in the trilogy just didn't live up to that movie. I thought they had a great foundation. I feel like what they did later on, it didn't really work for me personally. Rogue One has been the film that I'm like, yeah, this is the best one of the Disney era. Not that it doesn't have some problems and issues. It does. I think it has too many characters. Not all of them are well developed. I think the lead and Jyn Erso is not exactly that interesting. Not to fault the actress of Felicity Jones. Just the writing wasn't there. But still, and maybe a couple pacing issues. But overall, a very enjoyable movie. I think it's great. So I'd probably give like a full price, on the double toasted scale. But when they announced this, I was happy. But still, I'm like, okay, we'll see. With Cassian Andor, because one, Cassian, along with K2SO, he was one of my favorite characters from Rogue One. I honestly thought he was probably, other than K2SO, he was the best character in the movie. He was a different type of individual within the rebellion. So often in a lot of Star Wars movies, our heroes, or certainly people that are members of the rebellion, they're typically portrayed as being very, very noble, very upstanding. Cassian, he's a spy. He's a thief. He's a black ops guy. He's a murderer. And I like that that's how they portrayed him in that movie. And I was like, okay. And I just love his dynamic with K2SO. There seemed to be a lot to him. He hinted a lot about aspects of his past. I was like, okay, this should be your lead here. But I liked what they did with him in that movie. And I was like, sad that we weren't going to get more stuff with him afterwards. But I was happy that they announced this show, even though we kind of know the fate of his character. I was still curious about this, realizing Tony Gilroy was the showrunner. He was the creator of this. Obviously, he came on board and he helped out a lot of Rogue One. He was kind of the person that I think kind of righted the ship with that movie in various aspects. So I was looking forward to it. I was really liking the trailers, and I have to admit, yeah, like kind of just going into my overall thoughts so far, I think this show is what the Star Wars franchise has been in need of for quite some time. In terms of their live action content, I think Star Wars, like I said before, had a solid foundational start with Force Awakens and obviously with Rogue One, but I think it just kind of lost its way after those first 2 great movies. Not to say there hasn't been, good or great Star Wars, content since that time. I think like the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian for the most part, the animated shows like Clone Wars and Bad Batch and Rebels, some of the comics and the books that I have read, and certainly the video games, especially Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I think those have delivered some really, truly fun, great stuff, right? But it's been the mainline. It really has been the mainline live action content that I think has just been suffering for the most part. And with this show, I was like, this kind of has, like, look at this show, because it has a path forward, I think, for the rest of the Star Wars franchise. Just even like how it starts, it really impressed me. Its aesthetic and tone is such a departure from what we often see with a lot of Star Wars content. And it's already been said by many people already, but it really is more akin to something like Blade Runner or Alien. It's very early Ridley Scott, in its aesthetic sensibilities. It feels like it's set in the world of Blade Runner or Blade Runner 2049 or even something like Alien. It's just, yes, like Star Wars always had that lived in world, big clunky utilitarian looking ships and technology and things, but this kind of like doubles down. Like we also see other things that really haven't been present in Star Wars, certainly in the live action content, maybe in the books, but like we see like this in the opening of the episode, like the first 10 minutes of this episode, we see brothels, we see a brutal murder, and we're following, in my opinion, a selfish and somewhat unlikable character on the run, in those 10 minutes. And I was like, wow, this feels so different. And it is a breath of fresh air, as everyone has been saying. I like that in these first 3 episodes, at the very least, that we're focusing on the mundane lives of people under a fascist imperial regime. And also those that want to participate in that fascist imperial regime. In these episodes, it's really about like the ordinary people at first, and it's not afraid to make its lead character a very unscrupulous person. It's like, when we think of like, oh, the rogue or the bad boy in Star Wars, we instantly think of Han Solo or Lando Calrissian, right? But the thing about them is they're very charming. It's like, they do some bad stuff, but they have a good heart. They're coming from a good place. They're never going to do the right thing. The thing I like about Cassian so far is that he, at least in these first 3 episodes, he's like, I'm just trying to get out of here. All right, I'm not trying to be charming. I'm just trying to do this thing so I can leave because of this horrible thing that I did earlier. And he's not pretending to be like, hey, how you doing, girl? He's not laying on the charm thick. He's just like, you need to do this for me, okay? Or I'm going to die. And I really like that. I like that desperation. It was very different than your typical rogue, I do my things my way, Han Solo, Lando. Not there's anything wrong with those characters at all. I love those characters, but it was different. And I really liked it. If I have any like main criticisms of the show so far, I do think that the pacing is a little weird. Not that it's necessarily bad, but it's the first 3 episodes, it's paced more like a movie than 3 individual episodes of a television show. Like even like the first 2 you could have combined them in one episode. Hell, you could have combined all 3. And you would have had basically an hour and 20-minute movie, let's say. And that would have been perfect. It would have been like, oh, it's just, I wonder if because Lucasfilm and Disney, more specifically Lucasfilm, they've been releasing these shows and they've all been like, 6 or however many, 7 episodes. And they've all been like, 35 minutes, or 40 minutes. And people have been kind of frustrated by that. Like Kenobi had that. Like you had 6 episodes of Kenobi and like one of them was a goddamn filler episode. It's like, what the hell, this is it? And with this one, maybe they were like, well, maybe it was originally intended to, like, Cassian was going to be, because each episode, like, I think Tony Gilroy described it, every 3 episodes is an arc. It's telling a very specific story in the life of Cassian Andor and the characters around him. And this feels very much like a complete arc, these first 3 episodes. And so I wonder if maybe the intention of Gilroy and the filmmakers who are directing all these episodes, if they were supposed to be like, okay, this is an hour and 20-minute movie. This next one's like an hour and 20 or 20-minute episode. And it was supposed to be really 4 episodes, And I would have been totally okay with that if this is just like, this is the quality. Because that's the thing. The writing and the editing and the world building chat, it makes me forgive the somewhat awkward kind of endings for some of these episodes. Like, oh, we're ending here? Okay. It's kind of weird. But sure. And so I don't know, maybe it was good that feedback, or maybe it's the pandemic, could have been I don't know. But in any case, I'm really loving it. I'm really, really loving it. Like there's so many scenes in this show that feel far more mature than like mature content-wise than a lot of the recent Star Wars stuff or Star Wars stuff over the last several decades. Like one of the characters that we meet in this, played by Adria Arjona, she plays a character named Bix Colleen. She's a mechanic, and she's like this black market dealer in contact between Andor and this rebel fighter who we later learn who that is. It's not that like this scene defines her, but it was the first time like, oh shit, they're implying sex is happening in Star Wars or was about to happen. And we see like the aftermath of it. And I was like, it was crazy. Like we see Chad upper inner thigh of this woman. I was like, oh my God. But like that moment, or we literally have a scene where we're focusing on some of these flashbacks with Cassian when he's a child. And I loved, oh God, see, that's the thing. The world building, the lore building with his character makes it's so cool. And so we find out that he's a Canary. Like that's like because there's humans all around the galaxy, but they come from different worlds and planets and stuff and systems. And so we know like the core worlds, Coruscant, they have that very British accent. That's why they sound the way they do. You have people from Corellia. That's why they all sound like Harrison Ford. They're very American, right? But now they have an explanation for Cassian Andor's accent because he has a Latino accent. So and he's Canary, and that's the explanation for it. It's like, oh, that's so cool. So it's like, oh, I see what you're going to be doing. So if you bring in actors who have a Latino, Hispanic, Spanish accent, they'd be like, oh, they're Canary. That's what it is. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. But just kind of in addition to, like, you know, just the world building and the lore, you know, we see like this kind of Lord of the Flies situation with Cassian's childhood, and they don't say too much of what's going on, but you know, it takes place during the Clone Wars, and like there's no adults anymore, but all these kids are living together. And you could think like, oh, it's gonna be like a Peter Pan situation, it's gonna be whimsical, like they could have gone that direction, been goofy, but nah, it's like these are kids that are on their own, and you know, they're trying to survive and be soldiers and take care of each other. It's like stuff like that. You know, it's like, this is cool, because I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm thinking, oh, we're going to get little kids, and they're going to be running around from adults, and, you know, even though they're basically waddling, and for whatever reason, these fucking fugitives and murderers and smugglers and pirates, they can't chase after these kids. And in this series, they show that, wow, no, we'll kill a kid if we have to, and they do. And I like that. It felt mature. And a lot of my worries were you know, dissipated because of scenes like that. There's so much cool stuff in this show already, and it makes me excited for episode 4. And, you know, again, going into the individual characters and the actors, because it's more than just Andor, as I said. I already brought up Adria Arjona. I think she's great. I think we're going to see more of her, you know, caught up in this world because of what Cassian is doing. But, you know, going back on Cassian, again, I really like that he's kind of a scumbag. Like, he's just kind of looking out for himself. Somewhat, you know, he's doing a specific thing for a reason, which they established, like, okay, what gets him wrapped up in all this, but at the same time, he's still like, I gotta leave, you know. And like, I like it on all the episodes, like, you literally have him going up to people and they have to cover for him, you know, on the job, and he's like, and there's this great interaction between him and this one friend. I forget the actor who plays him, but he's like, where were you? He's like, we were doing this last night, and we did this, and then I fell, and this happened, and he's like, we're like concocting a lie, and his friend's like, all right, I'll go along with this too. It was such a great little scene, and we see that with people like Adria Arjona does such a great job. It's like they're treating this character just very differently than we often see with a lot of Star Wars characters and archetypes, right? And we also see that too with, I mean, I want to get into too many spoilers with this. I don't want to get any spoilers, but we also meet Cassian's adoptive mother in this show. Played by Fiona Shaw, probably, you know, for a lot of our generation chat, you know, for millennials and Gen Z. She's probably best known among us for playing Aunt Petunia in the Harry Potter movies. Here she plays Marva Andor, and I love her dynamic with Cassian. She's that weird mother. I made a comparison today on Discord Discourse. Their relationship reminds me to a certain degree of the relationship that Joe Pesci had with Martin Scorsese's mother in Goodfellas, where, like, you know, the circumstances of, like, Goodfellas when we were first introduced to Joe Pesci's mom in that is, like, they just got done killing this guy, and they're going into the kitchen to get, like, a knife so they can, like, you know, cut him up and stuff and things and do what they need to do. And they go in there, and she's like, where have you been? It's like, he's like, Mom, what are you doing up? What are you doing up? He's like, I worry about you. I don't know what you're doing. And she's like, sit down. Let me feed you, okay? I was like, it just reminded me of that. I was like, that's cool. Like, she knows her son is doing something bad, right? It's like, you're up to something, and I know you're lying to me, but you're still my son, adopted son in this case. Just sit down and talk to me a little while. She's killing it. She's so good. They have a little droid. I don't know what the droid's name is, chat. But I love the voice for him. He's so funny. Oh, God, I forget the droid's voice. He's the little piss bot droid. This is adorable. He's B2 emo. Great. Love him. I love his personality. Love his design. Love his look. He's not cutesy either. He's just like, his speech pattern's interesting. He has a dry. That's the thing. There's humor in the. People are probably hearing this like, oh, it's so serious. It's very serious, but it has a dry sense of humor. Like, you have some characters who can't, like, they make sarcastic comments, they do make jokes, but it's not like, you know, it's not one of those. It's just like, oh, that was clever. I like that. And so they do that a lot with B2. I really liked him in it. And even when they have this one scene, this thing pissing on him, it's not over exaggerated. It really, really works. But yeah, and other than that, we're introduced, you know, so Cassian is fantastic. Adria Arjona as Bix is very good. We do meet several other characters. We have Kyle Soller, who's playing the kind of, the would-be Imperial. Karn chat, Officer Karn. It's so funny because what's so cool about this in these 3 or 4 episodes, we don't even see the Empire. They're just talked about. But there's some really good world building and lore building here. Because, as Cassian says in all the trailers, he says in this episode, it's like the Empire has become so fucking fat and satisfied with itself that we can get away of doing all these certain things, you know, because of the bureaucracy, chat. And so now, because the Empire has grown so large so quickly, it can't maintain its hold on all these worlds. Now it also puts things in perspective, how the rebellion was able to grow and able to, you know, have all these operations across the galaxy, able to survive for so long. Because the Empire, it's grown too big. It can't concentrate in all these different spots. And so now at this point, we learned the Empire has been hiring third parties to control various worlds. We're introduced to the idea of corpos, this private security forces. The Empire's just like, we're paying for you, just cover this for us, okay? Well, I deal with this. And I thought that was really cool. And so that's where we're introduced to the character of Karn. All right, so it's also humanizing the bad guys. But in this case, we also see that these people have to deal with the mundane bureaucracy of trying to run the Empire. You know, human resources, people like working in office space in cubicles, and they're just miserable. And you have this one guy who's got a stick up his ass because he wants to be a nice, good jackboot Nazi, right? Great. And I love it too because he wants to be a Nazi, he wants to be Imperial so bad, but he doesn't have the charisma. He doesn't have the talent to inspire the men and women serving under him. I'm like, this is really interesting. So I want to see what's going to happen to this character like later on in the series. It's so good. He has like a number 1 too. I forget the actor's name, but he played he's the Scottish one. He has got those big bushy red sideburns. He played the commissioner in the Batman who gets his cheeks eaten off by those rats. That's the same actor. He's great. He's fucking killing it. Really, really, really love what they're doing with the corpos in this show, and you know why Karn feels adamant about trying to track down Cassian Andor because he does something that affects the corpos, which I think is really cool. We also get, speaking of the corpos, we're introduced to, so this guy's only 1 episode, but I really hope he comes back. And the actor's name, apologies if I'm saying this incorrect, Rupert Vanistart. That sounds like a goddamn Star Wars name. He plays Karn's boss in the show. That scene between them was one of the best moments of the first episode. Because it captured one, it's just very well written. It's because it's dealing with this guy who has been doing his job for decades and he's tired, but he knows his shit. He's not stupid. He knows his shit and he knows like, okay, we can't let this become bigger than it actually is. And basically telling Karn like, let this shit go. All right. Because you're going to bring down a whole lot because he knows what it could proliferate and what it could expand into. But Karn's like, no, it has to be done this way and by the book. That scene between the two of them is so good. And I hope Rupert Vanistart, who plays Chief Hine, he comes back. Like that, just that whole dynamic. He also played Sir Royce, and he's a Game of Thrones guy. He was the one that was hanging out with Littlefinger a lot in the Vale. He's that one. And then later on, Sansa Stark in the later seasons, he's that guy. He's just so good. But the thing is, it's not flashy. It's just like the set was great. It was a well-written scene, and you felt the dynamic between this. You felt the exasperation of Chief Hine. He's just like, this fucking guy just wants to be the best Nazi he can. I'm just like, and he's telling him like, let it go. Thought it was so good. And then last chat, which he really comes into like the second and third episode. But we don't know too much about him. But that's Stellan Skarsgård's character of Ruthen Rail, who is the contact, who is Bix's contact. She's trying to put him in touch with Cassian, right? Because of something that he has. Great. I mean, Stellan Skarsgård is, as we all know, is an amazing actor, the most fertile man on the planet. Yet he has sired like 17 sons and daughters. Is like he walks by a woman, prego, instantly. Chat. I don't know. It must be his musk, his essence. I don't know. I don't get it. But he's great. Because they hint at certain things. You don't know too much about him. We can see in the trailers that, okay, in the trailers, he's clearly leading a double life, being a rebel fighter or being an insurgent of some kind. but also he has this very high position of power within the Empire. Seems to be a politician, extraordinarily wealthy. And so I'm interested to see what's his reason for doing this right now. But even his interactions with Cassian Andor, I love that. Andor, like he calls him like by his wrong name. That was very funny. But like there's this whole moment between the two of them where Cassian wants this amount of credits. Like, yeah, you give me this much. He's like, okay. He's like, oh shit, he has money to throw around. And Cassian sort of takes him more serious. I love their dynamic, and I also get the sense that Cassian's way of doing things is probably influenced by this character, just because there are scenes in it. All I'll say is there is a scene, I won't tell you who else is in it, but there's a scene with Stellan Skarsgård's Luthen character. He just goes, shoot him. Just shoot him. Just get it over, shoot him. I love that. I thought this is pretty cool. And that's the other thing, too, just thinking of the action, the shooting. I mean, I'm talking so much about the characters right now, which is a good thing. Which is a good thing in the world itself and how it looks. Oh, it's beautiful. It was so smart of them to shoot on location. It's like, for the love of God. I'm not a big fan of the volume. Like, I'm sure they shoot a little bit of this on the volume, but it really does come across the quality when you shoot on location, because it makes it feel real. These sets they're shooting on feel real, I think it helps the actors' performances too. Helps the actors, performances as well. But it's just, I just felt more immersed in this than I did with like Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I'm like, so much of this is just on the volume. I can just tell. I'm like, yep, the volume shot. None of this feels real. Or it's like, it feels like a set. That's the other thing too. Like, this is the choreography, the cinematography. It's great. It doesn't feel like a fan film, which I feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi felt like a lot of the time, and also Boba Fett. Mandalorian, not so much. Mando is kind of walking that middle ground. Like, okay, you use the volume a lot, and I could tell. But thankfully, it's a lot of the stuff that's happening around Mandalorian and little baby Yoda, Grogu. It's good for the most part. But with Andor, it's just, I just feel like this is being shot better. But all the action scenes, there are several action scenes in the first 3 episodes. We get a little bit of a cool little action sequence that's very intimate, very dark and gritty. I really liked it. Where Cassian is confronted by these 2 individuals. But then later on in the 3rd episode, which feels very bombastic, it reminds me, because we did talk about this on Discord Discourse, but one of the big sequences involves like the Corpo security force going to the planet that Cassian's on, and there's only about a dozen of them, but they slowly ratchet the tension because the whole citizenry, everyone that lives there, is basically warning people of what's going on. So it reminds me of Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, and kind of like that escalation. And these corpo guys, these police officers, start freaking out, and I love how that builds. And there's some great shootout scenes, or some stuff with a speeder. It's just smart filmmaking. It's great. So other than maybe some weird editing with the like how they're ending some of the episodes, it's like, oh, I mean, you could keep going, or you can just combine them. I think that would be better. So far, Chad, this has been fantastic. This is what I kind of want Star Wars to be for a little while. And I don't want it like every Star Wars show, every movie to adopt this aesthetic, but for those that it works for, do it. Like, we talked about this as well on Discord Discourse. I look at Obi-Wan Kenobi, I look at Boba Fett. These could have worked with this tone and this aesthetic so well. Like, Boba Fett is supposed to be about, it's a crime show. It's supposed to be, we allegedly thought it was about to be a crime show. It was about the Star Wars underworld. It turns out it wasn't really. 2 episodes are not even about Boba Fett. He's not even in them. But like, this is the one you needed, where he's trying to reestablish him. He's trying to reestablish himself as in a new way. I don't want to be a bounty hunter anymore. I don't want to work for someone. I want people to work for me. Like, I like that. Or with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's at his lowest point in his life ever. His connection to the Force is severed. He feels insurmountable guilt over the state of the Clone War and also what happened to Anakin. It's like, this is what it should be. He should be not this fucking chasing after Princess Leia in the woods and she's waddling. It's like, come on, guys. It doesn't work. And it's like, this is what those things needed. And so I wouldn't mind some more Star Wars content like this, that is shot this way, executed this way. So we'll see what happens in the future. But right now, I'm loving Cassian Andor. It is great. It is so goddamn good. I'm very excited what we're going to be getting with these next several arcs, chat. We're going to be doing watch parties for this for the near future. But yeah, if I were to give this a rating on the double toasted scale right now, chat, I would give this is a very solid full price. At this point, I want to see where eventually we end up, but I feel like this is the most smartly written of all the Star Wars shows that we've gotten. And probably the best written Star Wars thing we got in terms of live action content since something like Rogue One. So, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. What about you guys? How do you feel about Andor? At least the first 3 episodes. Do you want more? Is there any other types of Star Wars content you'd like to see in the future? Let me know. What about you, chat? What do you guys want to see in Andor? What do you think of the show so far? I'm curious. I'm going to scroll up a little bit. What do we have? It almost feels like Cassian Andor is on a time limiter or something. Well, I guess, the episodes are about like 35 minutes each. About 40 minutes. I think the longest was like 40 minutes. Probably should divide them into chapters. Yeah, I think they just released them as like hour and a half movies. It's a mini series or whatever, but it's because some shows are like that though. Like the UK, they have a bunch of shows that are like multi-season shows, but their episodes are like an hour and 15 minutes, hour 20 minutes. So I think it would have been cool. But I know here in the States, like that's not a typical thing that we get. Kill him. There's a reverse of do it, by the way. Both sides will pour you kill for them. Yeah. I heard somebody edited Kenobi down to single. I heard about that. It was much better received by those who saw it. Yeah, that's what I've heard. And sex did happen in Star Wars. I guess it's just the way in which they shot this. It's like, I'm not even saying like do sex scenes. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it just felt like, oh yeah, people fuck in Star Wars. That's true. Of course they do. Like the way they did it was interesting. The way they shot it, well, I won't say too much, but I liked it. Your BF was jealous. Not gonna lie, the woman is so gorgeous, by the way. She looks super. Yeah, no, she was in Morbius. This actress has been in a lot of stuff. She was the love interest in Morbius. She was in, she was in Pacific Rim Uprising. Not a great, she's a great actress. The projects she's been in haven't been great, but she's good. She's good. Koki, please don't do fan service legacy character shoe-ins or market-friendly toys. So far, I'm not seeing that. So far, I'm not seeing. I felt like if they there was opportunities where they could have done that and they didn't. Like with the little droid with B2, it was like they didn't. I thought, okay, that would have been the opportunity to do that. I mean, he's cute looking, but it wasn't. They didn't go that broad with his humor. He was very sardonic. Yeah. Yes, that's 2 lies. Yeah, like shit like that. Yeah, bad idea. Yeah, it was like that worked to me. Like that humor, that's the humor I'm talking about with this show. It was funny, but it wasn't like woo, like goofy Jar Jar antics or something like that. Yeah. Let's see here. He's that boss that's tired and lets a lot of shit go while this younger guy wants to get things done. Well, that's the thing. But what's so cool about this, you're kind of like, okay, I get why Karn wants to do this. These people were murdered, right? But then you realize, like, after what happens, oh, the guy was right. His boss was absolutely right, because now it's going to get even worse, and now more people are dead. He said, let it go. And he was right, because he had the experience. I thought that was so cool. Shoot him. It's the new do it, bro. Yeah, shoot him. KC, good to have you here. Yo, Chris, how's it going? I'm going to check it out, man. I'm loving it. AGG, fucking loving it. Nice. Hamilton, have a great evening. Thank you. I'm impressed so far. Casfe's interesting because Casfe has not seen Rogue One. And so it's pretty cool to hear people's opinions on this show who have not watched that movie. But what's so cool about the show is you don't need to watch Rogue One to watch this, because it's a prequel for prequel, funny enough. So it works. I agree. Make me forget Jedi and Sith even exist. So when you bring them in, like in their shows or for cameos, they feel special, but regular humans can feel important too, and their stories can be meaningful. Yes, you don't need telekinesis or armor worth costs of a fleet of ships. You just need to be that Billy Butcher mentality. That one's yeah, and that's what they're doing right now. That's what they're doing. I haven't watched the show because I was over Star Wars for a bit, but give it a try. Like, listen, I totally understand if people are be like Obi-Wan Kenobi really, listen, that burned me. I was like, God fucking damn it. That was the one I'm like, okay, come on. You got to get this one right. I put a lot of chips on the table for that one. I got burned. I was very disappointed by that show. I was like, God damn it. And I liked the first episode. I was like, oh, that episode was pretty good. Second episode was like, And that third one looked like a fan film. Fourth one was terrible. Fifth one was better. But in the sixth one, I was like, all right, you gave me kind of what I wanted, but still. It had so many problems. So I understand. Totally understand it. I think the film division is a complete fucking mess. There's no doubt about that. But this one was, right now, I'm feeling, this is really good. it just feels so different than all the other Star Wars content that we've gotten so far. It's the closest, like the only thing I could compare it to was Rogue One, but it almost feels like Rogue One except more confident in itself, what it wants to be now. It's just like, okay, no, we have an idea and let's go. Let's move forward. And I was like, yeah. So far, I listen, I totally understand that perspective. I get it. Give it a shot. At least these first 3 episodes. Watch these 3 episodes back to back and see how you feel. If you don't want to move forward, then don't move forward. But I feel like it's like it's just treating it. These characters feel real. And some of these recent Star Wars properties that we've gotten, or these adaptations, or not even adaptations, but just these shows, or even some of these movies, like these people don't fucking feel real. These feel real. No, let's see. You really don't. In fact, you can watch this and then just what's so cool? That's what's so cool about it. Yeah, give it a chance. Give it a chance. Nataku Ender was a breath of fresh air. The other Star Wars shows have disappointed me, except Mando, of course. Really wanted to love Obi. I want to love Obi too. I want to. They think Boba Fett did. Sure, worse. Yeah, but I believe him. I don't want. Not a competition. I won't die in that hill. People say Boba Fett's the worst. I'm like, yeah. I mean, they literally have fucking Power Rangers and Spy Kids shit in there. I was like, what the hell? You have 2. It's the Book of Boba Fett, and 2 of the chapters of the Book of Boba Fett don't even have him in it. What's going on? I talked about doing a Star, like, if you want to do that, then just do a Star Wars anthology show. It's probably different characters, but I like Cad Bane. Cad Bane was cool, but still, John. But yeah, no, I like I said, I'm loving Andor. First 3 episodes have been great. Now, what's going to be interesting is, they released all 3 episodes of this, right at the start, which I felt was probably for the best. But now we're going to get these 1 a week, and Tony Gilroy has already described the series as like it's, arcs. Every 3 episodes, it's a specific arc. And so I wonder how that's going to feel having to wait now. But apparently, episode 4, from what I've heard, because, I'm a peasant, chat. I'm a schmuck. We're all schmucks and schlubs. We only have the first 3 episodes. These critics, some critics, most critics got 4. I've heard some other critics got 6. I was like, what? So I was like, but I heard the 4th episode is even different than these. I mean, it's still set in that same tone and aesthetic, but it's like it's a start of a new story now. I was like, oh, that's cool. So I'm very excited. Very, very excited. Lieutenant Leroy Jenkins. Hey, dude, must say that droid is one of the most innocent depictions of a droid. He's so cute. B2's adorable. B2's adorable. Love him, champ. But yeah, so far, I'm digging the show. I highly recommend it. Check it out, even if you've been burned from Star Wars like I have. I have been burned by Star Wars many a time, but I think this one it has a very strong start. We'll see where it is. I'll review next time, Chad. Like by the time this series wraps up, it'll be November 23rd. So maybe I'll do like a mid-season review. Maybe after this next arc, and maybe an additional episode, I'll do it again. I'll touch base and tell you how I feel. For right now, feeling pretty good about it. Jeff.